Hello, and welcome to the Empath Zone podcast, where we discuss various topics about being an empath and spirituality. This is podcast number 17. My name's Gary Leigh. I'm an empath and a healer, and I run the Empath Zone. With me today are two great co-hosts as usual. Jennifer Harris, hi.
Hi, I'm Jen, and I specialize in demonology.
Our other regular co-host is Mari. Hi Mari, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? And I specialize in psychic attacks and spirituality.
And today's topic is a very interesting one. It's about our memories. Where do they really come from? Let's talk about memories. Jen, do they come from the soul, our brain, or maybe both?
I believe both. I know a lot of people that are incarnated here are going to have to deal with just the memories of their brain and their memory or recall of their life here. The thing is that when we're dealing with the spiritual nature, people are starting to remember their past lives. So where does that come from? Is that their brain triggering off of things that they have seen over their lifetime here? Or is it actually a memory from your soul?
Now, I believe we are uniquely qualified to look at this subject in depth because of the beings that we have known.
Correct.
So, let's talk about you.
Well, me, myself, I know that I've had over 600 lives. I want to say that I remember all of them, but I can't readily recall all of them until something specific triggers that memory. The other thing is that I remember me as a child. Let's take this recent solar eclipse. I remember watching the solar eclipse when I was just under 2 years old. I also remember, because I live in Oregon, when I was around 2 years old, the Mount St. Helens erupting and the resulting ash snow. Now my mother is looking at me going, there's no way you can remember that. You were so young. So my memories of this life were very vivid, and when something triggered it, let's say the re-explosion of Mount St. Helens or this eclipse that triggered that memory, and I remember it because I was triggered into remembering it. But that gets us into another whole ball of wax. How can I remember a specific time in my life that technically I wasn't in this body?
And you did not enter your body until it was 3 years old.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure people are probably thinking, what the hell are we talking about? How is this even possible? So, I'm not sure if you want to try and give a short synopsis of what it's all about. But, I suppose you can try.
Oh, basically what me and Omen are considered as is walk-ins. A walk-in is a soul that is not born in a body, but they come into the body sometime during their life. So most walk-ins will come into a body at a very young age because the soul accepts the body and vice versa a lot easier than if you were to walk into an adult. Now, with Omen, he specifically would actually come in to with a pregnant woman, eat the soul of the child, and take over the child. So technically, Omen was born. He just was not conceived in that body. So the memories that Omen and I have can be muddied by experience in the lifetime. It can be a past lifetime that we remember, but it also could be the host body's general memories.
Now, I've noticed with walk-ins, or people who claim to be walk-ins, that when after they walk in, they start to talk about early childhood memories as though they were their own. And many people would say, well, that proves that he's lying or making it up, or he's not really a walk-in, that it's all made up. But I suspect it's because there are memories also stored in the brain they are inadvertently accessing.
Correct. So when we're looking at a walk-in, they will remember certain things of the body's memories because they have access to the brain. So when you're looking at the body memories, your brain has a certain capacity for this particular life's memories. A lot of people do not recall things like being born or things that happened to them before they're like 4 or 5, because it's hard to make sense of a toddler's view of life, especially as an adult. But with a walk-in, they can come in and their spirit takes over the body, so all its functions, its memories. So basically, in theory, a walk-in could come into a body, and if the body still has a soul, the walk-in can actually remember that soul's past lives as well, which is very interesting to me because I've never had that experience, but Omen has.
Yes, and Omen, I mean, the number seems to range from 16,000 years to 60,000 years. It's hard to know, but he had an uninterrupted flow of life. No reincarnation, no forgetting who he was, body after body, for many thousands of years.
Yes, and Omen could come in anywhere from pregnancy of the fetus, child, whichever you want to say, and to old age. And so he was very versatile. If you come into someone that was, over 30 years old, you're going to get a whole ball of wax that you weren't expecting.
Especially if you have just obtained a body through some sort of deal and you've taken over an adult body, you're going to get a lot of confusion.
Correct. Now, I know that with Omen, he had said something about only being able to have a few hundred years of memory at any given time. So how did Omen access any memories past that? Because I know he was talking about things like Noah's Ark and the Great Pyramids and things like that.
Yes, I mean, he actually described his meeting with Jesus, who we called Yeshua, and described him, and I have no reason to believe he was lying. And all the time I've known him, all his stories seem to be fairly consistently true.
And I have done my research on some of the things that he has said, and it took me a while, but I found proof that what he has said was actually true.
So it seems that the bulk of our memory is stored offline, so to speak, on the soul, or in the soul. I personally am not exactly sure how it works, but speaking from personal experience, when I want to access something which happened maybe tens of thousands of years ago, I have to set the intention for it to be downloaded, and it can take anywhere from minutes to even years before that information starts to come through. When it starts to come through, it feels different. You get these impressions, you get these memories and feelings, and you almost are channeling the information as it's coming through.
So when you're looking at your past lives, it's almost like a medium channeling a spiritual nature or spiritual being to tell you what's going on with what your past life was.
It is, but the thing is, you're not thinking about what you're saying, you're feeling it. And
Right.
when you're feeling it, you have that sense of truth. And when it's wrong, you have this sense, this isn't quite right. Therefore, you don't actually say it.
If they access these past life memories, how do they know that it's true or not if they don't have that false sense? The sense that maybe this isn't true, maybe this is that, maybe they have a past life, let's say Mary Magdalene. A lot of people claim this. How do we know that they're actually telling the truth, or are they actually feeding off of what they know in this body and saying, yes, this person was amazing, so it has to be true?
In my experience, it's a knowing. Now, it's quite possible that one being like Mary Magdalene might have many avatars of themselves here in the physical, and therefore they all have some soul recollection of it. And that's very common. That's why so many people think they were somebody famous. But you have to put aside ego too. What I'm finding is that when you're downloading these memories, they're not all rosy. In fact, some of them are downright horrific.
They have been. In personal experience, they have been very horrific.
And most people seem to only remember what history has told them. But when you get a completely different story to what history or mythology is telling you, that's when you can say, hey, maybe there's something more to it. For example, histories or mythologies take on who I was is nothing like who I was.
Right.
It's not even, there's grains of truth, but if I was to go on saying, yes, I was this being, and go, verbatim what's on Wikipedia, then yeah, I'd say that's just me making it up. But when my memories match with other people's memories, and they do, then you have a good idea that it is genuine.
Okay. So that brings us to the next part of this. When you have your own memories and you can access them through the brain functions, triggering memories, your soul memories, you can download memories from past lives, all that. So what happens when you have, let's say, a split personality? Technically would be two different people in the same body, two souls in one body, or what have you, even if it's just the brain making up two separate personalities. What happens with those memories? Are they the same or different?
And that's a question I think Mari will be qualified to answer because she's had some experience.
I tend to talk to my spirit guide a lot, so it's like I have two souls in one body.
And it comes out sometimes. And it comes out sometimes as a split personality in that way because you can
technically
go back and forth.
I'm a really high level medium, but I'm just lazy, really lazy. And because of past lives, I tend to not bother to listen, even though I have ghosts talking to me that I ignore. Yeah, I'm sorry. And I have guides talking to me, different esoteric beings talking to me, but I tend to not listen unless they're actually physically talking to me. So sometimes my spirit guide will possess my body sometimes and talk to people, and that's totally fine, and she could only do that. So it's kind of like having a split personality, and this started happening like in high school. So we would research a lot and figure out what was going on, because there would be times where she would take over and do stuff and I wouldn't have any memory, but then later on I would be able to access what she had done and vice versa. So it was very interesting. So
it was the body's memory of what you were doing that you were accessing, or your spirit guide's memory of what you were doing?
Both, because apparently, your body's like a computer. So whoever is logged in at the time can technically access whatever information's there.
I see.
Which is kind of very interesting. But on a soul level, I have specific memories, and my spirit guide will have specific ones. And my spirit guide will actually have to tell me about them, and I can't access them myself.
So you
and vice
can't
versa
access
for
her past life memories,
No.
and she can't access your past life memories.
Well, unless I tell her about it. I'm like, hey, look, there's a string right there. You can go and read it, or she could go to the library, you know.
So in other
Okay.
words, it's like the brain is a common library that both can
Yes.
access, but you can't access your soul memories individually.
This is very, very odd. I have no idea how it works. All I know is that because I have that medium capability, I'm able to do that. If I could do that with other guides, I probably could. If I would be that trusting, probably not, because I'm very,
Yeah. I understand that.
So, yes.
When you have these moments where she's taken over, now I've had experience with you when you've done this, and her spirit guide actually acts quite like Mari in a lot of ways, and if you're not really paying attention, a lot of times you can't tell the difference between the two until they start talking.
True.
That's very true.
I mean, the body movements and everything is almost seamless. And I think that's a lot because of practice, not a spirit guide came and possessed me, and guess what? She's exactly like me from day one. So, were you able to fool people from day one, or was it something that progressed over time?
Yes and no, because sometimes like we would play around with it like at school to see if people would notice. And there was this one particular high school teacher that he would notice, and we're like, fuck. Oh, sorry. Beep. Oh my gosh. So then, he confronted her at the time. He's like, who are you? And she's like, oh my God. Because I was like a junior. We were like junior. We were 16 and we were like freaking out. And then talked to him after school, and he's like, I know your secret. We were like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I got personalities too. And we're like, oh, well, that's good for you. So, but that's how he knew, because he himself had multiple personalities. And pretty much, because I have such a strong connection with her, and, she's in my spirit guide for, I don't know, God knows how long. We can tell if a person does have multiple personalities, for instance. Like, I know a couple friends that do, due to really severe childhood trauma. And so they'll actually have this personality come out in very emotionally stressful times, and they won't even know that this person had come out, and you're just like, whoa. And a lot of the times people just assume they're having some kind of emotional breakdown, because all of a sudden it seems like it's not them, quote unquote, when in reality it actually isn't. When
a person has a split personality, do you think they have separate memories of each personality? Or is it all one, just different reaction to the same memory?
From what I've witnessed, and from what I've, read a lot about, because I have a degree in psychology. So, and then multiple personalities fascinated me. So I read that book, Sybil. I watched lots of documentaries, and it just depends on the person. And sometimes this person could be so scattered to the point where their personalities are not even aware of the others. And at the same time, you can have a person that has multiple personalities that have been created, then all those personalities know about each other, but the actual person doesn't. And in other situations, everybody knows about everybody else. So you can actually have a shared memory, or you can have individual memories, because in that particular case of Sybil, she actually had separate lives where she was different people.
I remember that case. Yeah. She had separate memories for each personality.
Yep. Separate lives,
she had,
too.
15 different personalities documented.
Yeah, it's in the teens, yes.
So it was in the teens. So it was very interesting that with her, she had multiple different lives. And so if she was Sybil, she would have this life and she would be doing this, but she didn't realize that, let's say, Marianne, I don't know if that's the name or not, had a boyfriend in a different apartment.
Exactly, which is just crazy. Well, not crazy, more interesting kind of, stuff.
So they led completely different lives. but it was the same body. So is
Yep.
that similar to what your spirit guide and you are like, because you're leading two different lives in the same body?
More
Or
or
are you
less.
leading the same life, basically?
It's more like the same life. She's just kind of along for the ride. So,
Okay.
because she's my guide, quote unquote. So,
Yes. So with her,
hmm
she can access your physical memories, correct?
yes,
Now, her memories are soul memories then if you just take out the physicality of the situation, correct?
technically, yes.
So if she tells, let's say you or someone else, what she was doing, let's say 4 days ago, would that be your memory of what you were doing 4 days ago, or her memory of what she was doing 4 days ago?
If she had taken over the body, then the body would actually make a physical memory that I could access. So that's the difference. However, if she didn't, then she would have to tell me what she was doing a couple days ago.
Okay, I see.
Mm-hmm.
So as long
Very
as she is in control of the body, she and you both can access that. But when she's not in the body or control of it, then you have no access, because technically it's not a brain memory, it's her soul memory.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a computer, that's how it works. It's very interesting.
And like a computer, Omen actually mentioned that when he was in his current body, that the previous host, who had disappeared for a while, he couldn't access certain parts of the memory because she had somehow warded it, blocked it off from him.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible to ward your memory from other people, spirit guides? Let's say a demon possessed you. Would you be able to ward that memory off from the demons so they had no access to that?
If you know what you're doing, yes.
If you're aware of what's going on to you, then that's all you need. And then you could be like, well, just sort of, well, it's not sort of, just like how you are able to energetically put those barriers down to be like, well, this negative energy can't access, this area. You could do the same thing in your brain.
I see.
And the same thing with your memories, and safeguard it. A lot of the times people aren't aware of this, so they think that the demon can read their brain and read their minds and stuff, when technically they're just don't have any mental defenses, and they're kind of like an open book.
So when we're talking about possession of like a demonic entity, that's why to begin with people can tell the difference between them and the possessor. And then all of a sudden it's like a seamless thing, like you and your guide, because they've finally got through to all the memories and can act and react like the normal person, so you wouldn't be able to tell that they had anything wrong with them.
And then,
unless of course you're a professional.
I had this friend when in my 20s that, he had telepathy, but it wasn't very strong. So he could basically read your surface thoughts. So if we're thinking about something and it was kind of out loud, then he'd be like, oh, I see what you guys are doing. So a lot of the times you think of like a banana or something different, but while at the same time thinking of something else, and it was pretty, So that's kind of like the same idea. There's like misdirection.
Now, someone with telepathy, can they read someone's past memories, like soul memories, or are they reading a person's brain memory?
I'm not sure, actually. I think, because like...
What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, Pops.
I think it depends what permission level you've given them. If you haven't given them permission to actually read you, they can't read you, because there are certain limits to what can be done. That's why when people say, I bet you can't read me, they inadvertently block it by removing the permission, and then of course they can't be read unless there is something which they are personally involved with on a soul level, and then they can access it through themselves.
Right. That makes sense. Because I know I had a past life regression with a good friend of mine, and she said that she had to follow me into my soul memories in order to be able to look at them.
Interesting.
So I guess if you're give people permission they could follow you, but they're looking at it like in the third person.
So basically like watching a movie on TV.
Yeah, so basically, I guess if you give someone permission, then they can see what you see.
Okay. So that brings us to the next part of this. When we're talking about soul memories, how do people access their soul memory and know that it's a soul memory versus a actual physical brain memory?
Or in fantasy, which is another thing. And
well, that's complicated.
Yes.
it's okay.
Yes,
Practice is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Now, I've been very, very fortunate to actually meet up with people like you and Omen who can remember who I am. And there was another one. I don't know whether I should mention the name Mario or not, but you know who I'm talking about.
I wouldn't
say a
mention your name because we don't have permission.
A mutual spirit who was in the same boat as you and Omen, as Jen and Omen, who literally remembered me from back in the days of Atlantis. And she referred to me not by the name I was referred to back then, but she now called me the one you now call Gary.
Which was friggin' hilarious.
It really weirded me out.
We did
But
think it was funny.
the thing is,
It was pretty funny.
my memories matched with what she had remembered.
Right.
And when you're talking or sharing information with people, especially with you two, we all seem to have the same memory. We have the same recalls, we have the same feelings. And when we do something, we get the same results.
Right.
And it's the results which actually let you know if it's real or not. But how do we access it? Practice. Trust your feelings. If something doesn't feel right, it's not right. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you are someone that you're not. You'll get that sense of anxiety. You'll get that sense that this can't be right. I don't feel good about it.
Right.
It's like I've come across it several times in my search for who I was. I truly believed that I was tough for a while because the lines pointed to it, but it didn't feel right. And then I discovered it was kind of the other way around.
Okay. All right.
So
when,
and that clicked.
Let's say when you have a particular lifetime, if we go back to like different lifetimes, how are we going to trigger a memory?
The memories will trigger when the time is right.
So, in my experience, sometimes it's a smell, a deja vu moment, a certain place in time that you walk in and like, oh, I've been here before. What's going on?
Or a song, or a movie, or a conversation. These things attune you to memories. The amount of times I've gone to watch a movie and then all of a sudden I've been taken back to another time or another place because it has attuned me to those memories and it starts to come flooding in.
The one movie that always got me was when the original, I know there's a new one out, but the original Great Gatsby. Don't know why it triggered all these memories for me, but it did.
Must have been authentic.
That was like one of my favorite things. I love flappers. They're so awesome.
And that's why period pieces can actually be very valuable for helping you to remember if you were there or not. And that's why some dramas based on wars can be very traumatic for people because it might inadvertently spark a soul memory of when they were there themselves.
Which will actually spark, a lot of times, trauma.
Yes.
And you're not sure, let's say you're watching this and you're like, you remember being there, and then all of a sudden you're scared or have an anxiety attack or panic attack, and you're like, why am I feeling this way? I can't watch this. Well, it's probably because you have a soul memory of that or something similar to that.
And that's where things like fear of flying or fear of heights come from, because you might have died in the Air Force. You might have been shot down, And that's going to impact you. So you might not understand why, but that's one of the reasons why.
Yep, it's there. So, to conclude, yes, you can access memories, and your memories are both stored in the brain and in your soul.
Yes. So basically, you got two sets of memories. We got one which we access from our brain, and we got one that we can access from our soul. And both, like the brain memory, you can actually remember things which didn't happen, so you got to be really careful not to take everything on faith. You got to look at it from all angles and decide, does this feel right and does it fit in with what I know? And always remember, when you remember one thing, there's always a lot of things around it that you do not remember, so do not take that out of context. You have to remember the whole story in order for it to make sense.
Agreed. And when you do find out that you have this memory and you can access that memory readily, do your homework. Go back and look and see what you can find that matches what you're thinking it's going on. Confirmation is everything.
Yes, it is. And if you look for confirmation, it will come. It always does.
Agreed.
And try and be patient with yourself, because a lot of times people want to rush it and remember everything immediately. And when people do that, it could kind of open a whole can of worms that that person wasn't ready for.
And you may think you were some totally evil person when you had a perfectly legitimate reason for doing what you're doing.
And sometimes, you know, the mind will trick you into thinking that, oh, look, this is what I remember, and in actuality, that isn't what happened. So just be gentle with yourself and realize that you may make a mistake in what you remember. Just be ready to understand that it was a mistake and just move on when you actually get all the information.
Yes.
Yes.
And that just about wraps it up. I think it was an interesting topic. I'd love to hear anyone who's listened's experiences or questions on this, so feel free to ask. Remember, if you have any questions, you can send them to podcast@empathsupport.com.
And please check out our Facebook page, The Empath Zone.
And we have the links below.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, here are some others you might find interesting. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear about them. Leave a comment and maybe even a like.